This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, friends, good evening. Shalom Aleichem. We're continuing in Daf Hashavua. We're learning Maseches Nedarim, Daf Lamed. The Gemara brought a machlokes on Chaf Ches Amud Beis regarding if somebody said that something should be holy until the sapling should be holy until he cuts it down, or the towel should be holy until it's burnt up. Bar Pada is of the opinion Padan Chayzros V'Koichos. Padan Chayzros V'Koichos. If you redeem it, its sanctity returns. If you redeem it, its sanctity returns. Ula was of the opinion that after you cut it down, you don't need to redeem it. There was a question whether Ula disagrees with Bar Pada regarding whether it's Chayzros V'Koichos or not. Rav Moshe Kartabi, who was one of the Rishonim, the Ran quoted 5 lines from the bottom on Chav Ches Amud Beis, was of the opinion, and that Ula argues on Bar Pada. However, the simple way of learning is that they agree regarding Chayzros V'Koichos. So, Yosef Rav Abin Rav Yitzchak, 3 lines from the bottom on Chav Tes Amud Beis. Rav Avin and Rav Yitzchak, Berevi, the son of Rabbi, Kamed Rabbi Yirmiyah. They were Rav Avin and Rav Yitzchak, the son of Rabbi, were sitting before Rabbi Yirmiyah, and Rabbi Yirmiyah was dozing off. A kamanam named Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah was dozing. Yasi v'Ka'amri, they were sitting and they said, LeBar Pada. According to Bar Pada, the Amar, Padan, Chayzos V'Koichos, that Bar Pada says that if you redeem it, then the sanctity returns, because by saying that it should be holy until you until you cut it down, that implies that even if you redeem it, it would its kedusha would come back. So according to that opinion, Tivshoit Debayrav Oishia, you should be able to bring a definitive ruling to the question that Rabbi Oishia had. What did Rabbi Oishia ask? Meaning, Tivsha Debai Rabbi Oishia, you should be able to bring a proof to the question that Rabbi Oishia asked. Rabbi Oishia asked, Hanoisin shtei prutos leisha, if you give 2 coins to a woman. V'amarlan, you say to her, Ba'achas eskat sheli hayom, with one of the coins, marry me today. Uva'achas, and with one eskat sheli la'achar she'agar shich, marry me after I divorce you. He said, look, I'm going to marry you now. I plan on divorcing you, and then I'm going to remarry you. You know, there's a joke, as a zivik sheni, you're pretty good. Okay? So, he says, I'm going to marry you now, I'm going to divorce you, and then I'm going to remarry you. So, is that an effective kedushin? Rav Oishia wanted to know whether that's an effective kedushin, because think about it. At the time that you're marrying her, and you're handing it to her, you're able to effectuate a kedushin later. However, at the time you are married to her, you can't marry her again because you're married to her. So there is going to be a time that separates you from the ability to marry her, namely when you're married to her. So could you give a woman money now, and one of the coins will be effective now, and the other one will be effective after he divorces her? So, hachanami to have a kedushi. We should learn out from Bar Pada that it's a good kedushin. Why? Because according to Bar Pada, you're saying that I'm makdish this sapling now, and by saying it should be holy until you cut it down, you're saying, and after I redeem it, it should be holy again. Now, at the time it was holy the first time, you can't be makdish it. But there'll be a time that you'll redeem it, and then you should be able to be makdish it again. So, isn't it comparable that just like you could say, I'm makdish something now for after I redeem it, so shouldn't you be able to say, I'm marrying you now for after I divorce you? So all of a sudden, when Rabbi Yirmiyah woke up, he thought he was having a nightmare. Itar bahu Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah woke up. Amar lahu, he said, what are you talking about? Back in the day, sleep did not preclude you from following the shiur. Could you compare where he redeemed it to where others redeemed it? You see, I could be makdish something now for after I redeem it. However, because even at the time, I could be makdish something now for after I redeem it. But could you be makdish something for after someone else redeems it? Because telling a woman, I'm marrying you now after I divorce you, that's not analogous to I'm makdish something now for after I redeem it. That's analogous to I'm makdish something now for after someone else redeems it. Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. This is what Rabbi Yochanan said. Peda'an who, if he redeems it, it could become holy again. Pedam acherim, if others redeem it, ein chayzos v'kaychos. It doesn't become holy again. Why? Because when someone else redeems it, then he loses the ability to be makdish it again. So just because if you redeem something, just because you could be makdish something for after you redeem it, that's because when you redeem it, you didn't lose the capacity to be to re-sanctify it. Masha'en kain, when someone else redeems it. So therefore, just because you could sanctify something for after you redeem it, that doesn't mean you could sanctify something for after someone else redeems it. After all, when someone else redeems it, at that point of time you lose the ability to re-sanctify it. So marrying a woman for after you divorce her is analogous to where someone else redeems it. V'isha kipedu acherem damya. And a woman, someone who, the case of a woman is like where other people redeem the hekdesh. V'isha kipadu achem damya. It barnami, Amar Rav Ami, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, lo yishanu ela shepadan hu. The din that it becomes holy after you redeem it is when you redeem it. Aval padam acherim, if others redeem it, ein chayzos ukdoshos, it does not become holy again. Now, one interesting ha'ara is that this one interesting point is the Gemara is asking this question on Bar Pada, but the Ran learned that Ula agreed Padai chayzos v'kaychos. Ula was only arguing whether kedusha paka b'chdi. He wasn't arguing on whether if you redeem it, if it becomes holy again. This seems to be a raya to the shita of what we brought earlier of on Chav Chesam Beis, the shita of the Chacham Gadol of Moshe Kartabi, that in fact, according to Ula, im Padai enoi chayzos v'kaychos. Okay, let's see the Ran over here. Tivshait deboi Rav, iboi hachanami dehave kedushi, dechi hechi de'amar b'masnisin sheyachal lahakdosh netius halolu la'achar sheyiftu. Just like we say in the Mishnah that you could be makdish netios after the redeemed, v'chayla kedusha alay on the kedushas chal on them. Afal gav dulayak dishino, even though you weren't makdish at achar pidyon. Just like Bar Pada holds, you could be makdish something now for after you redeem it, even though after you redeem it, you're not going and being makdish it. Hachanami chayli kedushi. So too, kedushin should be chal ki amar. When you say la'achar sha'agar shich, after I divorce you, afal pi sha'achar shagirsha lo chazar v'kidsha, even though after he divorces her, he's not marrying her again. Laishanu ella shepidamhu. We did not learn only where he redeemed it. Why? Tikivan dipidamhu. Since he redeemed it. So let's try to get the distinction. What would the difference be if he redeemed it or if others redeemed it? If he redeems it, ula'olam lo yatsu netiyos halal mishus hektish, oimer shusai. So these saplings never left the domain of hektish or his rishus. So either he sanctified it. He said, after I redeem it, it should be sanctified. At the time he redeems it, it's in his rishus. When he sanctified it, it's in hektish's rishus. It never left either one of their two rishuyas. So dinhu sheyu chayzos kedushas. It's reasonable that it should be holy again. Aval padam achirim. But if others, aval padam achirim, if others redeemed it, afilu hichnisam achar kach l'shusai, even if he bought it afterwards, ein chayzos kedushas. It would not be sanctified again. In other words, let's say a guy said, I want this to be holy until the saplings are cut, and someone else redeemed it, and then he bought it, maybe they would not be holy again. Why? As soon as others redeemed it, Nestalik Rishus Balim Harishainim Mehem, the possession of the first owners departed. Since at that moment it was impossible for the hektish to be chal on them. Basar shatanami later also when it comes back into his rishus loichayel. Meaning the fundamental difference between whether he redeems it or others is when he redeems it, there was never a time that it was either not in Hektish's Rishus or in his Rishus. So since he had control the whole time, it's reasonable that the Hektish, the Kedusha returns when it comes back into his Rishus. Masha'in came when somebody else redeemed it. At that point of time, when it's in someone else's Rishus, he has no capacity and control over it anymore. So maybe since there was a time where he lost any control over it, it does not revert back when it comes back into his Rishus. And when you divorce a woman, in a sense, it's not in your rishus. What does that mean? Let's see the Ran. V'isha nami kibdu achim dami lefi shemiyad shenizgarsha yoytzeis mishus habal l'shusa. It leaves the rishus of the Baal and it goes into her rishus. Ve'en kedushin chalan aleh, and the kedushin is not chal on her.
So when she's holding the money, can somebody else now come and do condition with her or not? Is this like some type of an insurance?
Was that what?
Lock on her? You have a lock on her because you already gave her the money. Can somebody else now come and take her after he divorces her? So you have like a hold on.
In the case where he says, I'm marrying you after I divorce you? Now the Gemara is saying in that case maybe the marriage does not come back. Why? Because it's like other people redeemed the hektish where it leaves the rishus of the husband. She leaves the rishus of the husband. Maybe the kedushin does not revert. Now there's a very important lamdos here in the Ran, which is this is an unauthorized Ran, but we're going to do it anyway. Vikashali, the Ran says it's very difficult to me. Adarabba, Isha lepadan hu damya. A woman, it's like you redeemed her. Why? Shekashem shenatiyos halalu, just like these saplings. Lefi she'enon yoytzes mershus hektish. Oimer shusai, it never leaves the rishus of hektish or his rishus. Matzi la'akto shenu la'achar sheyiftu. He could sanctify it after he redeems it. So this woman also, either kach ishazu kivan she'ena yoytzes mershus habal, either she's in the rishus of the husband, Rishus Atzma, or in her own Rishus. So doesn't it make sense? Bedinhu shetehei cheles gadesh me'ata afil achar shetes garish. Why would a woman be like Padu Acherim? You see, Padu Acherim is, first it's in my Rishus, then it's in Hektish's Rishus, but then it goes into someone else's Rishus. Padai Atzmai, it's either in my Rishus or Hektish's Rishus. So by a woman also, it's either in the Baal or in the woman. So the Ran says, this is an epic Ran, and we saw this Ran quoted yesterday in the Avnei Miluim, actually. The Ran says, so in other words, either she's in the husband's rishus or in her own rishus, so shouldn't the kedushin revert back? V'nichali, the imatzia isha lekadesh atzma leish. If a woman had the capacity to marry herself to a man, hachanami dehavi hi dumya demakdish netias mamish, then it would be like sanctifying the saplings. Elakimin sha Torah amra, but the Torah says, ki yikach ish isha. It says a man takes a woman. V'loy amra, it doesn't say ki silakach isha ish, a woman is taken by a man. Loy kol himna shetachnes atzon shesabal. She has no ability to hand herself over to the husband. That's how we say in Kedushin. Amra hi, if she says hareini mureses lach, ein b'dvarei mamish, it's meaningless. So how does Kedushin work? If she's not giving herself over, how does Kedushin work? When a woman consents to the Kedushin of the man, he mivatelas daita uritzaina. She sublimates and is mivatel her das and her ratzain. Umashvi nafsha itzel habal kedavar shel hefker. And she makes herself to the husband like ownerless. V'habal machnisa l'shusai. The woman doesn't give herself over to the man. The woman renders herself ownerless, and the man takes her. You hear how marriage works? If only. But she doesn't give herself over. She renders herself ownerless, and then the man comes and acquires her. Hilkach in anu danim b'kedushin mitzara isha. We never view marriage from the perspective of the woman, ela mitzad habal, but rather from the perspective of the husband. Ulegabe baal, and legabe the husband, kipedua. So now, you see, if we viewed marriage from the perspective of the woman, so we could say, lady, you're either in your own rishus or in the husband's rishus. So why shouldn't the kedushin revert? Meaning, first you gave yourself over to the husband, then you went into your own rishus, so you should be able to give yourself back. But the way we view kedushin is mitzad the baal, and legabe the baal, when he divorces her, it's like others redeemed her. Kedushin rishonim hiber shusai. With the initial marriage, she's in his rishus. Achar gerishin yoitzim rishusai. She leaves his rishus. You can't prove that kedushin works just like if he redeems her. It's not similar to where he redeems her. It's not similar to where he redeems Hektish, because when he redeems Hektish, it's either in his rishus or in Hektish's rishus. Basically, you see there's a domain called Hektish. So either it's by me or it's by Hektish. So if I want to say, I want the Hektish to work after it's not in my rishus, I have the right to do that. But by marriage, it's not either in his rishus or in marriages. It's either his or someone else's. In a way, it's like achirim. So you say, well, in that case, then just like padai achirim, it's not chal. Why don't we prove that marriage is not chal? In other words, why don't we take it the other way? Why don't we say, since Rabbi Yochanan said that if padam achirim einon chayzrois ukdushos, so why don't we prove definitively by marriage that if he divorces her, it won't be chal? No, it's not exactly like that case either. We can't prove from padan achirim dolei chayli Mishum Deloy Domi Nami Legamri. It's not similar to that completely. Because even though the woman doesn't give herself over to the husband, but a little bit she does. It's in some capacity she does. She's giving herself over a little bit. It's more fundamentally, she's just rendering herself ownerless. So since she's just rendering herself ownerless, in that sense, it's like paday acherim. But in the sense that she's giving herself for marriage, in that sense, it's like padan atzmai. So it's like a quasi in between. So you can't prove from the fact that paday atzmai, the kedusha is chal, that by marriage it should be chal, because by marriage it's not quite like paday atzmai. You can't prove that by, just like padam acherim, it's not chal, by marriage it should not be chal, because it's not completely like paday acherim. Marriage is somewhere in between paday atzmai and paday acherim. Okay, now we have a new topic. Okay, a very interesting topic. The Eon segment will be on this. If it's okay, we'll do a short Eon piece on this tonight because I'm not going to be here this coming Sunday. Okay. Says the Mishnah, Hanoider miyardei hayam, mutter b'yoshvei hayabasha. Someone who makes a neder, I answer myself, all seafarers, he is permitted, and those who live on the dry land, because the guy is only answering sailors and people in the navy. He's not answering people who live on the dry land. People who live on the dry land are not included in people who live on the sea. But miyoshvei hayabasha, if he answers people who live on the dry land, then Asr miyardei hayam, he's Asr to the seafarers as well. Sheyardei hayam b'chlal yoshvei hayabasha, those who go down to the sea are included in those who live on the dry land, because ultimately they're going to have to come back to the dry land. You know, they can't stay there. They're not going to be able to stay there forever. Why? Sheyardei hayam b'chlal yoshvei hayabasha. Those who go down to the sea are included those who live in the dry land. But the Gemara says, we're not talking about those who go from Akko to Yafa, from one port to another. We're talking about people who go longer distances. The question is, what exactly does this mean? We're not talking about those who go from Akko to Yafa, but rather those who go on longer distances. Rav Papa, Rav Acha, Brei. Let's see the Ran. Mutter b'yoshvei hayabasha, ba'oisan she'enin regilim lios yardei hayam ba'aniyas. So those who don't typically go on the sea on boats. Someone who asks for seafarers is not asr to those who go on boats. Miyoshvei yabasha asr b'yardei hayam. Afilu heim achshav. So if you ask for yoshvei yabasha, you're asr in yardei hayam. Afiluim achshav bayam, even those who are now on the sea. Why should soifin la'alois liyabasha? Eventually going to go to the dry land. Can the first time of the Gemara. V'loi ke'elu ha'holchem me'akol yafo mefarsh Gemara hechikai. Now the rest of the Rans are going on Amud Beis. The rest of the Rans up to the Gemara are going on Amud Beis. The Gemara has one simple question. What in the world is this last statement, not like those that go from Akko to Yafo, but rather those who go far distances? Says the Gemara, Rav Papa, Rav Acha, Brei Rav Ika. There's a machlokes, Rav Papa and Rav Acha, Brei Rav Ika. Chad Masni Aresha. One learns this statement is going on the Resha, but Chad Masni Aseifa, one learns it's going on the Seifa. Mandatani Aresha, the one that learns it on the Resha, Masni Hachi learns like this. Hayunoider miyardei hayam, one who makes a neder on those who go down to the sea. Mutter b'yoshvei yabasha is permitted to those who live in the dry land. But they're asr to the yardei hayam, habi yardei hayam asr. But only real Yardei Hayam. V'loi ke'elu ha'holchim me'akol yafo. Not like those who go from Akor Yafo. You're not usher to them. When we say that if you usher seafarers, you're mutter to the dry land people, but you're usher to the seafarers, we're talking about real seafarers, not people who just take a short trip from Akor Yafo. Why? The halin yoshe yabashineno. Those are considered dwelling on the dry land. So that's a very lenient opinion, that it's going on the Reisha. That in the Reisha, when you usher the Yardei Hayam, you're mutter, and the Yoshe Yabasha, you're also mutter to some Yardei Hayam, namely those who don't really travel too far. The Ran says, Chad Tani la Aresha, lahadetnan loi ke'elu ha'hocha me'akol yafo, desrile Aresha koi, ulakula. Because those who go from Akor Yafo, the Halin Yoshve Yabashaninu, they're dwellers of the dry land. Mishamahu Porta, that little amount, the Hainu me Akor Yafo, Shehin Kroivin Zelazeh, they're very close, they're so close, Loi Mikru Yardei Hayam. It's a very close travel, that's not called Yardei Hayam. And then the Gemara continues, the one who learns it on the Sefer learns like this. Not like those who go from Akor Yafo Bovad. Even someone who it's their way to spread out, meaning it's l'chumra. In the Seifa, when it says if you aser people who live on the dry land, you're aser in the Yardei Hayam. Not only those who go from Akor Yafo, but even those who go a very far distance, since they're eventually going to go to the dry land, they are aser. So it's a chumrah. It's even those who are mefaresh. The Ran says v'chatani la aseifa. What about those who go from Akor Yafo? Certainly that's aser. I'm sorry. Those who go from Akor Yafo in the Reisha, Hanoider miyardei hayam, aser miyardei hayam. Right? Hanoider miyardei hayam mutter b'yoshvei hayabasha. But you would be aser to those who go from Akor Yafo. V'chinami afilu hochim Akor Yafo b'chlau Yardei Hayam miduloi parish midi Reisha, because nothing was explained on the Reisha. We go l'chumra, like the opinion that this comment is going on the Seifa, namely that if you aser Yabasha people, you're aser to the Yam, even those who go travel far out. The Ran brings an interesting shaila. What about somebody who just travels on a one-day trip? We're gonna talk about that in just in a moment. But that's Daf Lamed Amud Aleph. Tomorrow Lamed Amud Beis, and. If you give me a few minutes, just want to share with you one interesting point here on this last sugya. Give me 1 minute, I'll bring it up on the screen.
Recording stopped.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.